everyone, this is a video about researching tennis matches. That's exciting. I released a video last year covering the basic check that I do before I trade any match. If you haven't seen that one, I'll leave a link to that in the description beneath this video, although I am going to cover that in this video as well. What I am going to then do is go on to look at what else I can compare stats wise between the two players to try and figure out who's got the edge in today's match. I'm going to look at a US Open quarterfinal between Rublev and Medvedev. Let's crack on and take a look. Okay, so we'll do the base check first. Start on the. I'm using Tennis Insight, by the way. I'm not going to tell you which other sites are good for researching tennis matches because I use this one, so that's what I'm going to show you. Start on the overview tab. We're going to do the base check. So a quick look at things like ranking. That's about all I would look at there, just to get an idea if it was a player that you're not familiar with. Ranking gives you a bit of an idea where they sit compared to everybody else. You've got the head-to-heads. Medvedev has won all three of theirs. You look at what surfaces they played on when it was. So in this case, certainly relevant. It's in the last 12 months. Two of those are pretty much in the last 12 months. We've got one on today. They're playing on a hard court, so Cincinnati is relevant. 2016, not hugely relevant. So you can see there he's not dropped a set in all three of their matches, and we've got two within the last 12 months or so, 13 months. Okay, we then go on to the activity tab. So on this tab, what I'm looking at is the last 12 months and this calendar year. Now initially I'm looking at these percentages of matches won, but also take into account how many matches they've played. For example, if somebody's played 50 matches and won 75% of them, somebody's played 3 matches and won them all, they're going to have a higher percentage. But I would give more of an edge to the person that's played 50 matches and achieved 75% wins. Fucking hell, what is that? What the fuck is that? You bastard, just fucking talk. Why does my voice always fucking go when I start doing these things? Right. So on this tab, what I'm looking at mainly are these two lines. So you've got the last 12 months and current calendar year. And I'm looking at first the percentage of matches won. Do take into account how many matches. If they've not played many, it's easier to get a higher percentage than someone who's played 50 matches and won 75%, whatever. So flick between the two. What I'm trying to do is, there's no one stat's going to tell you who's going to win or who's going to have an advantage. I'm trying to get a feel for all the stats, and then we'll put everything together at the end and come up with who we decide is the stronger player. So flick between the two, you can see Rublev, this is for all surfaces, 79% matches won, Medvedev 74, and 83% in 2020 for Rublev, 73% for Medvedev. So he's got the lead in both. Then we're going to look at the current surface, which in this case is hard court, so do the same again, these two rows. So Medvedev 87 in the last 12 months, 77%, 78 nearly for Rublev, and in 2020 85% for Rublev and 81 for Medvedev. If you look at the actual games played, 13 from 16, 17 from 20, so the only difference is, it's a big difference, he's got 4 extra wins as Rublev this season. Okay, then what we can also look at how they did at the current tournament in previous seasons. So in May, this is Rublev, 4th round that's this year, you twit, 4th round last year, quarterfinals in 2017, so he's bettered himself this year, making the quarterfinal. Look at Medvedev at the US Open. He made the final last year, losing to Nadal in 5 sets, so he's got to be hopeful that he's going to reach the final again, especially with Djokovic being defaulted out of the tournament for hacking down a lines judge. Ninja move with a lob of a tennis ball. Could do with learning that myself. Okay, so if you've got players that are fairly evenly matched, and these two have got, just click back to the hardcore stats. These two strong results. If you look at the results in the last 50, which is something else you can use as a comparison, on hard courts, Medvedev has won 43 of his last 50. You don't often see players that high. Rublev, not bad at all himself, 37 out of the last 50, so that's a good comparison as well. You don't always need to look at all these. Often you will get to a certain point and you've seen enough to see who's a stronger player. But sometimes you need to go through everything to just try and find who's got the edge, and even then it's not always easy. Right, let's look at stats for the current tournament. So we're on to the overview tab. We go down to the bottom and you've got filters here, time wise, week, fortnight, month, 3 months, etc. Normally for the current tournament, most tournaments are just a week. You could filter for a week. In this case we've got a 2-week tournament. Because we're in the second week, we need results for the last fortnight. It's on the main tour, all surfaces, doesn't matter about choosing the surface when you're doing it for just the current tournament, and just make sure that it's got the correct number of matches. In this case they've played 4 matches in the tournament, which is correct. If you're doing it on the weekly tournaments, sometimes say they reach the semis or the final the week before and you're looking at a second round match, or maybe a quarter-final match in the following week, you can get a little bit of an overlap. It's like a 7-day rolling week rather than just this week. I've asked them to put in a current tournament tab. They don't want to do it. Fair enough, but you can do it most of the time with just the filters that you've already got. So anyway, we've got 4 games each. Obviously they've both won 4 because they're still in the tournament. Now what I'm looking at is really down at the bottom, or the bottom half of this. Breakpoints saved, service holds, return points 1, break points converted, break points 1, and how often the opponent holds. So in this case, Rublev, 80% breakpoint saved, obviously excellent. 67% for Medvedev. Service hold 92 if you round it up for Rublev, 94 for Medvedev, both serving well. Return points 44 against 49, that's a good figure. Obviously favours Medvedev again. Breakpoints converted 44 for Rublev, 51% for Medvedev, gives him the edge again. And obviously on the opponent's hold you want that figure to be as low as possible. 62% for Rublev, and Medvedev's opponents have only held serve 52% of the time, so that gives him an edge as well. So the only stat where Rublev leads in these ones that I'm looking at is the breakpoint saved, and we'll look at that. Obviously that gives 1 tick in his box, but overall everything favours Medvedev. We'll look at the breakpoint saved as to why that's not a huge advantage. Certainly not as huge as the numbers on their own look. So that's something else that you can check to try and separate them. Then we can look at who they've played in the current tournament. and the quality of the people that they've beaten, and also the stats during those matches. So if we look at Rublev first, very strong favourite in the first 3 rounds, highest price 1.13 in the first round against Shardy, surprisingly. The only time he's dropped a set was in the last round against Berrettini, which wasn't a surprise. Berrettini ranked 8 in the world. He was, these aren't Betfair prices, so anything over, 1.8 is the same as evens on Betfair. So he started a slight underdog in that match, came through in 4 sets. Excuse me. Look at the stats, clicking on this box. See there, he was only broken once in the 4 sets, needed to save 7 break points in that one. Let's just look at one stat in each match, look at the break points. Only faced 2 break points in that one, broken once. Second round, only broken twice, had to save 5 others. And faced 8 break points in the first round, but again only broken once. So if you notice on when we were checking the tournament stats, he'd saved 80% of his break points faced. But if you look at the prices that he started at, he's really strong favourite in those. He shouldn't be being broken that often. And the fact that he's faced so many, certainly in comparison to Medvedev, that 80% versus 66% break points served for Medvedev doesn't look quite as impressive. Let's just take a look at Medvedev's as well. Again, he's been really strong favourite. The biggest price he started at was in the last round, 1.1 against Tiafoe. Hasn't dropped a set. Look at his break points. He was broken once. That was the only break point in 3 sets. Broken twice in that one. Bit of a surprise. Jeff Wolf. Faced 4 break points. Broken twice. Second round, O'Connell faced just 2 break points, wasn't broken, and the same in that one against Delbonis. Delbonis not good on hard courts, had 2 break points, didn't take any of them. So really, in terms of break points, I would still give the advantage to Medvedev there. He hasn't had to face as many. And you could maybe argue that because Rublev has faced more, it was easier for him against weak opponents to save a high percentage of them. If that makes sense. I think it does. So that's pretty much what you can look at. Another thing that I would do is you can do it for all matches, or you can just do it for the current surface. Just have a scroll back through previous results. Really this year, I mean, who were on there? Medvedev lost in the quarterfinals against Bautista Agut. Maybe he wanted to save some energy for this tournament. He made the 4th round at the Australian Open. With that being a slam, that's more relevant towards the US Open that we're looking at today. Not too interested in exhibitions. Obviously, it's probably never going to apply again, but the coronavirus stopped the season for 4.5 months. A lot of the players played exhibitions just to get some match fitness, match practice apart from anything else. And often they had to play, because of lockdown rules, they had to play opponents from their own country, and so they'd end up, some of the top players, if they did take part in exhibitions, a lot of them didn't, they'd be basically beating up lower ranked opponents who will give a win, which helps for the percentage of wins, but there's no glory in beating somebody ranked 600 or something. end of last year, October, took the title in Shanghai, and as I said, made the final at the US Open. Quick look at Rublev as well. Hard courts. Lost to Dan Evans in his first match at the Cincinnati tournament. It wasn't in Cincinnati, it was moved to New York just for this year, we hope. Quarterfinals in Dubai. Again, lost to Evans. Lost to Zverev, fourth round at the Australian Open. Took the title in Adelaide and the title in Doha, so you can see why his results are a little bit better for this season. So putting everything together, you've got the head-to-head, Medvedev 3-0, two of those relevant in 2019. One of them on the current surface, the other one indoor courts. Has some relevance towards a hard court match. Stats for the tournament favour Medvedev. The only stat of the main ones that I look at that favoured Rublev was the breakpoint saved. But as I said, because of who he was playing, the fact that he needed to save so many breakpoints isn't a great sign. All the other stats favoured Medvedev. The fact that Medvedev made the final last year, Rublev hasn't had that level of success in a slam yet. I'm sure he will. Looking at all that, slight edge to Medvedev. If we look at the start prices, Medvedev starting around 128. I think because both of them are serving well, Medvedev is returning particularly well, but if Rublev can keep his serve tidy, he can certainly keep the sets tight, which means that 1 or 2 points either way can decide a set. So we've got some value on him. Medvedev is too low. You certainly wouldn't want to be backing Medvedev at 128. I would, first of all, it's the best of 5, obviously US Open. I would back Medvedev if he lost the first set. I think if we could get a lay of 1.15 to around about 1.2 in the early games on Medvedev, it's certainly worth laying him, because Rublev's got a good chance keeping the sets tight. And I think he'll take a set in this one. He's not managed a set in the 3 previous ones, but I think he will in this one. So that's the extra things that I check for to try and separate the players. Hope that's been useful. Leave any comments below or email me with any questions, and I'll see you on the next video.